Hello and welcome back, AP people. Today's document of the day comes to us from 1890. This is Jacob Riis's How the Other Half Lives. This is one of those classics of progressive muckraking literature and photography. It's a really unique piece, and it's something that I really think is important for you to know, not necessarily just for the AP exam, but for life in general and as historically knowledgeable people. So the photograph you see there is Jacob Riis. He's a Danish immigrant, and he actually begins his career as a police reporter. So around 1886, 87, the sort of miracle of flash photography comes to the United States, and Riis is completely taken with it. And he starts spending his evenings going through the slums and back alleys of New York. He starts out with a team of other photographers, and evidently they're not really taken with this idea of spelunking around slums in the dark. So he trains himself in photography so that he can carry on taking these photographs. It's for modern viewers, it might be a little troublesome because he tended to just take some of his police friends and just break into people's houses essentially and capture them in the moment. So some of the photographs are kind of a little startling, I guess, right? Because they're certainly not staged. He's just taking photos of people where they are. And a few folks look a little bit surprised. By January 1888, he's touring the country with what he calls a magic lantern show. So he's preparing these really compelling lectures to match his super bleak photography. And it's all just projected larger than life on these screens to entertain people and inform them about how the other half is living in American tenements. By 1890, he's transformed this lecture series into the book, How the Other Half Lives. It has some troubling aspects. He really relies a lot on ethnic stereotypes to talk about groups of people. But at its heart, Riis is pushing for reform, and he's pushing for this idea of cleanliness because you can see what is not clean in the photographs, and he thinks that that sort of cleanliness, both physical and moral, is what's going to reform the cities and bring people up out of poverty and hardship. So I'm going to read you a selection from chapter 4, and I'll let some photographs run while I go. So this chapter is the downtown back alleys, which he's kind of giving you a visual of walking through some of these places. Down below Chatham Square, in the old Fourth Ward, where the cradle of the tenement stood, we shall find New York's other half at home, receiving such as care to call, and are not afraid. Not all of it, to be sure, there is not room for that, but a fairly representative gathering, representative of its earliest and worst traditions. There is nothing to be afraid of. In this metropolis, let it be understood, there is no public street where the stranger may not go safely by day and by night, provided he knows how to mind his own business and is sober. His coming and going will excite little interest, unless he is suspected of being a truant officer, in which case he will be impressed with the truth of the observation that the American stock is dying out for want of children. If he escapes this suspicion and the risk of trampling upon, or being himself run down by, the bewildering swarms of youngsters that are everywhere or nowhere as the exigency and their quick scent of danger direct, he will see no reason for dissenting from that observation. Glimpses caught of the parents watching the youngsters play from windows or open doorways will soon convince him that the native stock is in no way involved. Leaving the elevated railroad where it dives under the Brooklyn Bridge at Franklin Square, scarce a dozen steps will take us where we wish to go. With its rash and roar echoing yet in our ears, we have turned the corner from prosperity to poverty. We stand upon the domain of the tenement. In the shadow of the great stone abutments the old Knickerbocker houses linger like ghosts of a departed day. Down the winding slope of Cherry Street, proud and fashionable Cherry Hill that was, their broad steps, sloping roofs, and dormer windows are easily made out. all the more easily for the contrast with the ugly barracks that elbow them left and right. These never had other design than to shelter, at as little outlay as possible, the greatest crowds out of which rent could be wrung. They were the bad afterthought of a heedless day. The years have brought to the old houses unhonored age, a querulous second childhood that is out of tune with the time, their tenants, the neighbors, and cries out against them and against you in fretful protest in every step on their rotten floors or squeaky stairs. Good cause have they for their fretting. This one, with its shabby front and poorly patched roof, what glowing firesides, what happy children may it once have owned! Heavy feet, too often with unsteady step, for the pot-house is next door (where is it not next door in these slums?), have worn away the brownstone steps since, the broken columns at the door have rotted away at the base. Of the handsome cornice barely a trace is left. Dirt and desolation reign in the wide hallway, and danger lurks on the stairs. Rough pine boards fence off the roomy fireplaces, where coal is brought by the pail at the rate of $12 a ton, these have no place. The arched gateway leads no longer to a shady bower on the banks of the rushing stream, inviting to daydreams with its gentle repose, but to a dark and nameless alley, shut in by high brick walls, cheerless as the lives of those they shelter. The wolf knocks loudly at the gate, and the troubled dreams that come to this alley, echoes of the day's cares. A horde of dirty children play about the dripping hydrant, the only thing in the alley that thinks enough of its chance to make the most of it. It is the best it can do. These are the children of the tenements, the growing generation of the slums. This is their home. From the great highway overhead, along which throbs the life tide of two great cities, one might drop a pebble into half a dozen such alleys. Okay, so that is just a taste of the sort of selection you can find in Riis's How the Other Half Lives, and just a sampling of the photographs. If you have the time and the inclination, I would suggest at least looking at some of the photos. But now that we have really clear photographs of how people are living by the 1890s, it can be a really good resource for context. Okay. Good stuff. See you tomorrow, guys.